Hey, this is Des from the Gals Podcast, and the Gals Podcast is a listener-supported program brought to you by the I Am Media Group. Your support can make a difference in the lives of those who hear our podcast all over the world. Visit iammediagroup.org/donate to give your safe and secure tax-deductible donation. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, and we hope you can join us for our next chat.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Des.
And we're the Gals. Real life, real talk from real women. So grab your coffee and let's chat.
Welcome to the Gals Podcast. I'm Des. Julie is out today, unfortunately. She is in excruciating pain, so pray for her. She got her wisdom teeth out, and she can't really talk at the moment. So today actually should be the Guys and Gal Podcast, because today I have a very special guest or guests on the show. I got my husband, Steve Childs.
Hey.
And if you hear any whining or Baby Shark songs in the background, that is because our son Tristan is here with us too.
Yeah, thanks for not letting them think that was me. If you hear Baby Shark, that is not my husband. That is my 3.5-year-old.
So, Steve, we like to, on the Gals Podcast, start off with what we're drinking this morning.
I have 2 drinks. First off, I have Diet Coke, and I have a decaf Dunkin' Donuts with light cream and 3 sweet and low.
So you got your decaf coffee and
Yes.
Then you've got your caffeinated Diet Coke.
Yes, notice it is Diet Coke, not Diet Pepsi.
And Diet Pepsi is better. So today's actually a very special and exciting day for us, because why, babe?
Because Julie's in a lot of pain, and I'm here. Oh, today is our, today is the gender reveal.
Yes, I'm actually 18 weeks pregnant yesterday on Valentine's Day.
Did they know that you're pregnant?
I don't know, but now they do.
All right. Bang.
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah, my family all knows. I made a social media announcement, and now everybody on the Gals Podcast, now you know. So tonight we'll know the gender of the baby. And what do you think it is, babe?
I know.
He knows.
It is a girl.
Like, you knew that Tristan was a boy.
Right. And I did. I actually wrote that down. You remember? I wrote it down.
Yes, I remember.
And
after I cried.
Yes.
After finding out I was having a boy, because I was very certain I was having a girl.
Right.
Now, why do you think it's a girl?
I just feel like the Lord laid it on my heart.
But I prayed for a son, and I think God hears my prayers more than he hears yours.
Okay. Well, it wasn't. I didn't ask for a daughter. So.
Anyway, so Steve and I, we go to the same church, obviously. Hopefully, if you're a couple, you go to the same church as one another. But if you don't, my heart goes out to you. I know that can be really hard. But Steve and I have been very blessed to be at Gloucester County Community Church in Sewell, New Jersey. And I help with the worship team, and Steve is the creative arts director for the church. So tell us what that entails.
I am over top of all aspects of the worship service.
Okay, like what?
Well, the whole service obviously is worship, so that also then entails lights, sound, projection, as well as the musical portions. So on the musical end of it, I do pick out the worship team, pick out the songs, and a lot of times I do get the worship team involved in that process as well. And it takes a lot of prayer, because you're trying to get the right songs for the service and things that fit together well, and try to have, in a sense, a unifying theme. And then the lights and projection parts of it have to go hand in hand, so it enhances the message that you're singing. And so people can enter into worship. You're almost creating an environment that is conducive to just letting go of your week, and just, again, entering into that place where we can just focus on loving the Lord and giving him his due praise. And then there's the sound aspect of it. I have a really good sound crew behind me, and it's just making sure that those components are all working together as well.
So our church is one of the larger ones in South Jersey, and we have a lot of different people come in. We're considered multicultural and multi-generational. So that comes with a lot of different challenges for somebody overseeing a church like that. So what what are the challenges and how do you, in a sense, combat them?
Well, because we're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And I just preached on this. We sometimes forget that the world is filled with people.
Wherever there are people, there are problems.
Yes. And we're here to serve people. And that can be difficult because sometimes it's hard to help people, although they ask for it. It's hard to help people because they get in the way. And because of that, we also put up a guard. And sometimes I find myself not listening to people because I'm assuming that they're going to be a certain way. For instance, I'll just tell you, sound volume comes up a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's a big problem.
Right. It's a big problem in a lot of churches. So right away, I think in my mind, oh, you're just being difficult. But what I find out by listening to them is sometimes they're right. Sometimes the music is too loud. There might be a hot spot in a church where they're sitting. So those things have to be addressed. And here I am trying to get them to fall into a place of worship, but I'm not helping them do that because it's so loud that it's actually becoming a distraction. So there's that challenge, is to be able to listen to complaints people have without looking at them as being complainers. But the other aspect of it is that you have a younger generation who don't think it's loud enough. So basically you can't win. And we try to find a happy medium in there. And that's always a challenge. People come with their problems from their weeks. A lot of those problems are self-inflicted, problems in relationships and so forth. And so, I'm talking not only as a creative arts director, but also as a minister at the church as well, because I do have the opportunity to preach there often. And when you're doing that, people come up to you with their problems and concerns, and sometimes it's a lot of people that come to you at one moment. So you have to, and Jesus dealt with that. How do you handle a multitude of people wanting to share their hearts and their concerns and their fears and their troubles when I'm just one person? And, I myself have to learn how to delegate. I know our awesome pastor, Pastor Bruce, is that something he's always teaching us, is to learn how to delegate.
Yeah, that's a hard thing for a lot of people, including myself, because we always feel that we want to do the job and we want to do it right. And sometimes we feel like we're imposing on other people. A lot of our church members or people that serve are volunteers. They're not paid. So it's like trying to ask them to do something and we feel bad. So we just feel like we want to take that on ourselves.
Yes.
But anyway, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to music and worship. But you're talking about how you ministered too. And Steve was up pretty late last night. He got up at 5 a.m. with our son Tristan, brought him into our room so I could keep on sleeping. But poor Steve was up from 5 to God knows whenever. But he was researching a specific topic that he's going to be preaching on in March.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
We're doing monthly series now at the church. And next month we're going to be starting a series on what does it look like to be a Christian in our current culture, our current generation as well. The two go hand in hand, culture and generational. The generations go hand in hand. And you're right. Sometimes the Lord purposely wakes me up. He gave me a lot of energy. I started doing some research. I figured I'd just check some things, and it was miraculous. I knew last night that the Lord wanted me there. He wanted me to be up because he guided me to places that were perfect for what I'm going to be speaking on. And I'm finding out more and more and more that this idea of what is culture is fascinating, and it's complex because sometimes we look at cultures as being, the American culture. What about the Japanese culture? What about the Arabic cultures? Their cultures too. It's not just us, and it's not just areas either. I grew up in the 1980s, so we had a culture. It was the heavy metal culture, and that we were a separate group of people. that we had similarities and understandings that other people didn't have. So we were, in a sense, a subculture. And today we have great cultural differences between the age groups and what they're into. So it's hard. It's very, very hard to define culture.
It really is. And when I was in Hungary for Bible college, that came up a lot. You know, what does a Christian look like in Europe as opposed to America? And one thing that did come up was coffee. And I'm not sure if this holds true now, but they think us drinking coffee is bad. But they drink. They drink wine, and they don't think that's bad.
Right.
But us as American culture, we've seen how drunkenness, affects the whole family and abuse. And so there's differences there. Like they think that drinking coffee is almost a sin. And then, back in, I guess Queen Elizabeth days, I don't know which queen it was, but showering was a big thing. If you were a Christian, you took a shower, that meant you were washing your sins away. And one of the queens had boasted that she only showered once in her life. Right. So there's just different weird things. In Paul's day, what was it? Circumcision and eating the blood of the animals sacrificed to idolatry. That was a big hot topic then.
Right.
Who would want to do that now? Eating the blood of animals, but that was their thing.
Yes.
So every culture, every generation has their thing that they really struggle with.
Right. And what I noticed is that we have, or at least we're striving to have, a Christian culture. And what I believe is that Christianity itself is not a culture. That would be like saying that morality is a culture. That, if I have morals, then that's something, that's a culture. Well, it's not. To not have morals is not a culture. Morality is in a culture. You can have a culture that has morals, or you can have a culture that doesn't have morals. And so Christianity is a standard in a culture. It's not in and of itself a culture. And so, we are a multicultural church at Gloucester County Community Church. But we have to be mindful that is not who we are. We are living in a culture, and it has its own sets of rules and so forth. But some of those things are contrary to what being a Christian is. And we strive to be relevant. And I feel that by doing that, we are trying to blend too much into what the world is. And I get hung up on that all the time. We have our tattoos and we have our earrings,
right.
And we have all these things to make it appear that we are like you. And we are, in a sense, but a Christian is going to clash with the culture that they live in. And what we should be doing is allowing that. We should be allowing that clash to happen. It's like when somebody gets in a car accident. When you veer off into somebody's lane and you hit them head on, well, what happens? It makes an impact, and it makes an impact in that person's life. You just drastically and abruptly changed that person's life, and from that moment forward. And of course, a car accident, something like that's bad, but not for us as Christians. If we find ourselves veering into their lane and we wind up having a head-on crash, we're going to make an impact in their lives. But if we are just going with the flow and just staying in our lane only and doing what everybody else is doing, we don't make an impact. And so that's the difference.
As you can tell, my husband definitely is a preacher and a teacher. He's a, what do they call you? Preacher-teacher.
Yeah. Preacher-teacher. Yeah. A didactic preacher.
What's a didactic preacher?
It means that it's not just preaching, but you're teaching at the same moment. Like you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's really cool having Steve as my husband, because even though he is my husband, when he preaches like this, it still speaks to me. We see each other's flaws, we're in each other's lives every day, but still when he speaks and God speaks through him, God still speaks to me through him. Like I can get past like who he is and all his flaws and see that.
Oh, flaws. That's great. That's